I'll bite, Judd. What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better.
Hello, friends and fiends. Welcome to another edition of Blood and Guts, HHN. Tonight, we're going to break down a classic for you, 1989's Pet Sematary. And with me, as always, is my partner in frights, Matt. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great, Adam. You know why?
Why's that?
Because we're about to discover a little bit why sometimes dead is better.
Don't go down that road. That's right, folks. We're talking about the classic Pet Sematary. And as you know, we're doing another Hail to the King, where we break down the works of the classic Stephen King. And this one holds a particular spot in my heart for me, because I remember watching this as a kid, and it terrified the shit out of me. Certain scenes did. Certain scenes terrified me to death. So,
I mean, obviously this holds a special place in my heart as well, but I was probably I was still a kid, but I was a little older, but I'd actually discovered part 2 before I'd actually seen this one.
Oh, so you had to go back.
Yeah, and I mean, at the time, like looking through nostalgia, I enjoyed part 2 as a kid, and made me like it enough where I wanted to seek out that first movie.
And how did that make you feel when you watched part 1 compared to part 2?
Oh,
you were like,
gosh.
oh, man.
Night and day. Like I said, because I enjoyed part 2 for what it was, but this movie here is just like one of the best Stephen King adaptations I've seen.
Yeah.
And King himself's pulling double duty in this movie. You know,
Yep.
Pulls off a nice cameo, wrote the screenplay.
Cameo. His stickler rules for the way he wanted this to be done. Like, he had specific rules. I mean, from what I've researched.
Yep.
You know, he said it had to be shot
In Maine.
in Maine, and kind of have that setting, which it did. It had that setting. And you know, obviously this one was, and let me just touch on this just briefly, if you don't mind. I remember watching this as a small kid, and I was at my grandparents' house, and they had the big satellite dish, the big, you could hear it moving satellite, the HBO and all that. And I remember
is it like one of those ones on Stay Tuned where if you went outside certain times it'd suck you in?
No, it never sucked me in, but I mean, it did in some rights of films.
Right.
But this thing was like, I put this on, and it terrified the hell out of me. Certain scenes did, especially the Zelda scenes were the ones that really got
My
me.
wife's the same way. She even to this day she can't bear to watch those scenes because it really scares the crap out of her to see Zelda.
Well, when it got me because, you know, the cat I was cool with, the Timmy Betterman I was cool with, all that stuff. But it was the closed door where she goes in the room and Zelda's in there. That's what really got me. Was, as a kid, I thought every room I go into with a closed door, she's going to be there waiting for me. So this was a good one.
Yeah, well, just to get her started, like I said.
Yeah, kick it off. Kick it.
Yeah, initially, like when Stephen King wrote this novel, he didn't really think it was that good. It wasn't until his wife had actually went through and read it.
Yep.
And she's like, this is really good. You ought to have this one published. He finally took it to his publisher. Ended up being one of his best-selling novels that he's had. So not long after, a few years after it was written, George Romero snatched up the rights for $10,000 and was planning on directing it himself. But then he had scheduling conflicts with Monkey Shines, which is what caused him to drop out of it.
Yeah.
Then in my research, I can't remember the executive's name, but there was an executive at Paramount that had read it with Romero and enjoyed it and brought it to their attention. And even then, they passed on it for a few years because they thought Stephen King films had kind of ran their course with Cujo, Carrie, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And
what a schmuck.
And as like, you know, as history is repeating itself, we're in this year where we had the writer's strike in Hollywood. There was a writer's strike in 1988, and Paramount's like, well, we need to find a movie where we don't really have to do any writing and involve them. They pulled out this script, dusted it off. It's like, this will be good. We'll go ahead and green lit it, and as I say, the rest is history on it.
Yeah.
But just talking about
and just so well done.
Mm-hmm.
Just was it Mary Lambert?
Mary Lambert. That's what I was going to talk about. They had her fill in George Romero's shoes, and
she captured things that I don't think anybody else would have been able to get, like nuances in the film, the cat, the settings, like making it perfect.
And she actually talked about in interviews what she loves about the horror genre itself is that you're not confined to any set of rules. Like she can be, like you talk about, she can set the stage the way that she wants to set it, and she's got a great eye. Like she come from a background where she did Madonna's music videos and stuff.
Yes,
so she's
music video background.
Very creative.
Yep.
And like I said, she done a fabulous job directing this movie. And like I said, the King himself come on board to write the screenplay and adapt the novel. Mm-hmm. And they did a great job as usual casting. You got Del Midkiff played Lewis Creed. Great Fred Gwynn, who just chews the scenery as Judd.
He's so great.
He is so great in this movie. And
he's so great.
Fun fact about him, I did not know that even at the time of his elder age, he still had jet black hair.
Yeah, had to dye his hair.
Had to dye his hair for this role. And I never would have known that. And
he was just custom made. I think what they said when he showed up for the auditions, or I don't even know if he did technically audition. Well, they knew.
Yeah, fun fact: Mary Lambert actually had to fight hard for Fred Gwynn because they said the executives at Paramount said nobody will take him serious. That's Herman Munster. Who's going to want to see Herman Munster in a horror movie?
Exactly.
And so I'm glad she fought hard for him because he just totally. To
Just
me,
so
he's the
many
backbone of the movie for me.
Yeah, the backbone as well for me, and just seeing him in this setting as the old man, and also can I trust this guy?
Yeah.
Or is he going to lead me down the wrong path? Well, guess what? Spoiler alert, he leads you down the wrong path. And for me, and I'm sorry to cut you off, the scene that gets me for Fred in this film is that chopped up scene where there's a Wendigo. Mm-hmm. It doesn't quite touch on that, but they hear that sound, and he's obviously terrified. It's just a loon. Don't worry about it. That scene right there is perfectly symbolizes what the book is and symbolizes what this film is for me. And that's just my personal opinion.
Well, one thing we're going to talk about that I enjoyed about him is he is so relatable because everybody has someone in their family that spins yarns like he does.
Yeah, the good uncle, the grandpa.
Yeah. And so that's what makes it easy to enjoy his character in this movie. Another casting choice they had, she had to fight for him too because the executives wanted to pick a toddler that has twins so they could film more scenes. But Miko Hughes just totally nails it as Gage Creed, and to be less than 3 years old to come in and do the job he done in this movie was amazing.
Such a great job, and brings you that innocence of that child.
Yep.
That you're watching this film, and you're sitting on the edge of your seat, and you're like, please don't let anything happen to this child. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, they're like, no, we're going to let something happen to this child. And you're like, no, please don't. So,
and obviously, if you read the book, you already knew it was coming.
Right.
But to be in the 80s, late 80s, because it came out in 89, though, and to have this child and have him die as horrifically as he did, and then bring him back as a villain in there, ballsy move by the producers and the Stephen King himself when he wrote that book, because he knew that was going to tug on your hearts. Because when I watch that now, I get teary eyed whenever he gets hit by the truck and you just see the flashbacks and pictures of him.
I do too, and it's that to the music of the Ramones, nonetheless. But the Ramones, I love it because I had read where he had written to them and been like, hey, I'd like for you to do a song. And they're like, hey, here's a couple of songs. The turnover rate was really quick, which is just awesome. I mean, that level of respect between musician, writer, artist, musician, also, that was great.
Oh, it was fantastic. And just all the other aspects of the story, you begin with the the Creeds moving in. They moved from Chicago, so they're getting away from the hustle and bustle of the city and think they're going to have a nice, quiet life in this peaceful town. And then Ellie first spots that trail down there and kind of hint what you hinted at earlier. Is he going to lead them down a wrong path or a right path? And he sets that stage when he takes her down there to show her that pet cemetery.
Oh, yeah. And so you got this whole conflict. And I feel like it holds just as much relevance now. Mm-hmm. Like, we could put it on right now. And I would feel not quite the same shivers I felt as a young child, but there would be shivers to be had.
I definitely, like I said, not as much shivers, but I'm definitely entertained by this movie. And I can watch this movie a lot.
But it still sits with you, and you kind of like, it's got that feeling. The whole film has this feeling of, and later, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, later in the film when his wife is trying to get back, you know, something is wrong. That's the underlying theme of the story. Something is wrong. I got to try to fix it.
Kind of piggybacking or heading back towards the beginning, though, like you were talking about the innocence of Gage. That's how you feel that with Ellie as well. And that's what Judd is whenever he takes him to that pet cemetery. He's like, you know, she needs to learn a little bit about death, but obviously whenever her cat, Church, gets hit by that car, he don't think she's ready to deal with that yet. So that's when he makes that dreaded decision.
That line, crosses it. Yeah. And a lot of these Stephen King stories, and not just Pet Cemetery, but you notice this in King's work a lot, is there's a line. It's almost like a Bugs Bunny cartoon, folks. Like, there's a line. I dare you to cross it. Okay, I'm going to cross it. Okay, well, now I dare you to cross this one. Okay. Well, now there's a cliff on the other side, and you do that whole, oh shit, and then you fall like the coyote
or to piggyback on, you keep crossing that line so far, you look back,
you can't go back.
Restart.
You can't go back, and a lot of this is a reoccurring. You know, King films have this. Christine has this. Salem's Lot, you know, kind of has this. Once you cross this line, you cannot go back to a normal life, and that is what stands so strong with this. Film.
Continue on then, like whenever, I always love that one scene where they're actually going to the pet cemetery and then he's going to help them bury Church, but he's like, I know each step, I know where to stand, go follow me. And then of course, you know, he falls down. And going back to where you're touching on with the Wendigo, they had actually had it written in the movie. I don't know if they actually filmed any shots of it or what, but at the last minute, like I said, when I was researching, it didn't say if they shot or not. They decided to cut it from the movie. But that was always something that I'd wanted to see translated from the book to film.
Right.
And there'll be some other stuff whenever we're talking about like overall like picking nits with it, like what you had like things to mention. That's one for me that always stands out. But
right. But does it? But here's a question, not just for you. I mean, this is a question that you can answer later on, and that the audience can answer later on. Is it better to show that Wendigo, or is it better to have that sound where he's obviously disturbed and it's like it's just a loon? Does it sit more evil and weird in your mind if that happens, or is it more of a, for me, if you show it,
they don't really have to show it, but they could talk more about the Wendigo to kind of let you, because
the lore.
If you've not read the book,
I love the lore of the Wendigo.
Yeah, if you've not read the book, you're really just going to think, oh, I guess it is just a loon, because you don't have any reference to that to begin with. So I'd like to see a little bit more to it. Now, like I said, maybe they knew they couldn't make it work, and so it was best for them just to drop it. You know?
Right. And sometimes in these horror films, less is more.
Yep, I agree with you on that.
So hearing a sound or seeing a glimmer of something is better than, you know, a full body suit and a character in a full body suit, and you're like, that's either going to go one of two ways. That worked, or that looked like crap.
Yep.
You know.
And pushing forward then, so finally Lewis does bury, he finds out he has to bury his own, he buries the cat. He's still not really sure why he's got him up there, why he's burying, like he don't know what the end result of this is going to be.
Yeah, no.
And then you see like he's crossed that line, the cat's come back, there's something off about
something
that cat.
Something is weird going on.
But he's not worried about it because he's worried about his daughter not having to lose the cat.
Right.
And but he's already, like I say, he's already crossed that line, and now there's really no going back. And now it kind of leaves in your head, because then you get to that scene.
Because you got a moral decision.
Yeah.
Like do I proceed, or do I not?
Yeah. You get to that scene now where you think everything's going well, the cat's back, but then Gage gets hit by that truck.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like you say, you
Now
got that.
even more of a moral decision.
Are you going to cross that line?
What do I do here? Yeah,
and you got that,
which is predominant in other King stories as
right.
well. Of course.
So you got that classic scene where she, in our intro, where he's like, "Okay, Judd, I'll bite," when he's telling him about Timmy Baderman.
Yep.
And wanting to know what happened if he buried a human. What's going on with that? And Judd explains that story.
His visible shaking
Uh-huh.
when he asked Judd, "Has anybody ever buried a human up there?"
Uh-huh.
He's got that visible shake.
Yeah.
Why would
anybody do that?
Why would anybody do? Okay, all right. Obviously, something's going on here.
And kind of like you're talking about how Judd led him down the wrong path. Judd knows that it might be his fault because he showed him that power and awakened that power.
And he does feel it.
Mm-hmm.
This is my fault.
Mm-hmm. So that's, like I said, that's a great. I'm glad you talked about crossing that line because that's the next line. You're going to cross that line.
You're going
now?
to cross it. You're going to cross this, and this moral decision is predominant in a lot of Stephen King stories. Like, look at The Shining, for example. Like Lloyd the bartender.
Yep.
Is he really there? Is he really there? Is he not? You're going to take that drink?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to really set yourself on that path? Okay, let's cross that line together and see what happens. It usually isn't very good, according to King. But that's why we like to break down the King stories here for you.
Oh, absolutely. And so, pushing forward, one thing we haven't mentioned yet was Brad Greenquist, who played Victor Pascal. So earlier in the movie, he has that horrific death where he's hit by the car.
What a great makeup.
That's why I was going to say. You see his brain pulsating with the blood coming out. Like, you couldn't do that any better and make it any more grotesque. But you have him warning him throughout the film not to cross that line.
Yeah, so he's like the good omen, the good entity.
Yep.
And you know what? That's kind of reminds me of. I was thinking about this earlier, and there's no relevance to this, but I was thinking about that scene coupled with the scene from Jack in American Werewolf.
Yeah.
Where you have this
warning him.
This grotesque character. Now, of course, American Werewolf, they played on the comedy element where it gets more and more grotesque every time you see him. Whereas this character doesn't, because it's a serious piece. But it's a similar premise, where you have this grotesque character appearing over your bed. Hey, Doc. Hey, don't you do that.
It's funny you mentioned that, too, though, because honestly, the guy that played Jack Griffin Dunn and then Brad Greenquist have both said that when they were making the movie and they're in that makeup, nobody would eat lunch with them.
Nobody would eat lunch with them. Nobody's going to sit with you. You got things hanging off of you. You're looking kind of messed up. And as you're a makeup lover. I'm a makeup lover. We've both, experimented with makeup effects many times in our short film career. It's such an awesome makeup.
So that leads into it, though. American Werewolf in London fans, leave in the comments, should we do that one as a creature feature? Let us know. But,
we're going to do it anyway.
Whether you want to or not. But moving along then, one good thing about Pascal is not only is he trying to warn him, he's on the back end with Ellie in their dreams, and he's also hinting at Rachel, too, where she can kind of hear him.
Yeah.
And,
a little bit of a
where
Shining.
they know something. Yeah, exactly, like Shining. Yep. They know something is wrong, but they can't put their finger on it. Mm-hmm. So Lewis has crossed that line. He's went and buried Gage. And one thing I love about that scene is when after he's buried him and Rachel's calling, trying to figure out what's going on, you see behind her that picture of Zelda in the Victorian outfit.
That's the same outfit, yeah.
Yeah, foreshadowing what she's going to see. Of course, you don't know it at the moment, but I always love catching little things like that whenever I rewatch the movie.
Yeah, but, and a lot of the times they would, unfortunately, a young child would pass.
Yep.
And they would have them painted because photography wasn't a thing.
Right.
You know where it was, but it took forever. And so they would have the child painted in an adult outfit and then put on the wall. So this is kind of reflecting that. Zelda died young. Gage died young kind of thing. And then later he's in that same outfit.
Yes.
Zelda was. But here's the other thing about it too, is you touched on this earlier. There's one scene where you can see Lewis, and he's a rational man. Mm-hmm. He's thinking, is this right? Is this wrong? Should I do this? Should I not do that? when he passes through Paxcal's ghost,
Yeah.
when he passes through that ghost, and he's like, "Don't do this, don't you do this," kind of thing, and he passes through the ghost, and you can see this look in his eyes where he's just dead set on doing it.
Yeah, that when you're speaking of, that's when he has Rachel, and he's just basically gone off the deep end.
He's gone off the deep end. That's him. That's him not listening to reason anymore. That's your shining moment of axe the door.
Right.
Let me in, little pigs. That's your moment where he's crossed over at this point.
Right. And if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Andrew Hupacek, the one was cast as Zelda. Mary Lambert, she auditioned so many females for this role.
Yep, exactly.
And then loved what he was doing with it and thought it was actually scarier. And to her credit, it was. It was freaky.
It was terrifying, and it's the one that scared me as a child. Every time, my parents would say, "Oh, you got to go to bed. It's your bedtime."
Never get out of bed again.
My bedroom door was closed, and I'd walk up the flight of stairs. I'd go down the hallway, and I always hesitated opening that door because I knew on that bed
it was
going to be Zelda twisted up, and she was going to lunge up for me. So I went through the house. I opened all the doors. I opened all the doors of the house just so I wouldn't have to see Zelda.
I tell you that the makeup they had on her, like the way they made her back or made his back look, was just amazingly done, well done.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, I loved it. Moving on then with the story, Rachel, she's always harbored that grief over Zelda's death because she felt like she could have done more, but she was happy that she died. And that always bothered how she felt happy and no remorse at all because she was kind of sick and tired of taking care of her sibling that couldn't take care of herself.
Sure.
And so once she realizes something's wrong, can't get Lewis on the phone, Judd don't know where he's at, she makes that decision to go back home. But during all this, Gage finally comes back from the dead, and it's time for Judd to pay for his sins in the movie, and has his little interaction with Gage, which is, to me, that's one of the creepiest scenes in the movie, where you hear Gage just laughing and giggling. And
when you go into the house too, sorry to cut you off, but when you went into the house, that camera kind of sweeps in through Judd's house, and you see like the walls are black and they're like dripping ink and shit like that. That's when you knew it was corrupted. But yeah, back to.
I was going to say that's so creepy because you hear all that giggling and laughing, and you kind of know what's coming.
It's
he knows he knows what Lewis has done now, so he thinks he's prepared. And one of the goriest scenes in the part of the movie when he gets him in the Achilles there with that knife, that still turns my stomach to this day. But gosh almighty, man, that's like I said, that's very well done. If it can make me like grimace, that's great makeup.
Yeah, and then going back to everything you just spoke on, this is a film where you will feel emotions. You will feel that grief that Rachel has. You will feel that point when Lewis crosses the line and he realizes, I don't give a shit anymore. I'm walking through the ghost. I'm walking through the barrier, and a lot of people kind of rag on this film, but I'm thinking this is a great Stephen King film because everything King conveys, this film conveys. That grief, that loss of innocence, because that's what it is. It's a loss of innocence. Your child dies. It's touching on a trauma from your past. It's all that stuff. This is a loss of innocence. Everything in the book, minus the Wendigo and a few other things. Yeah, this is just conveyed perfectly here. Yeah. So in our opinion, it's a perfect King, Hail to the King film.
Continuing on, then Judd meets his maker, obviously. Then, of course, Rachel shows up, and that's the part that really tugs my heart because first she comes in and sees Zelda, and she hears Zelda, so you're freaking out over that.
Once again, I'm freaking out, and I'm opening doors.
Then you see your little baby there, all decked out, and has that little cane, being all creepy as he is. I got something for you, Mommy. I got something for you. And then, of course, you hear him take care of his mother. And then Lewis has to make that decision the next morning. He gets that phone call. And that, to me, that's one of the creepiest things. Is at first I play with Judd, then I play with Mommy, Now I play with you.
No fair.
No fair. So now he has to come to that realization that he's made a mistake and kills Church, kills Gage. But then, like you said, there's one more line left to cross, and that's take Rachel to the pet cemetery. And you hear him trying to reason with the ghost. Oh, Gage has been dead too long. She just died. This will be fine.
Trying to reason.
In Paramount, they'd actually filmed a more ambiguous ending where you really don't know if Lewis dies. You really don't know if Rachel, if it worked or not. Like it kind of leaves you.
Yeah, they wanted a hard hitter.
Right, where you make up your mind. But they said no, we need more gore, we want a definite ending. So here she comes in, missing that eye, Satan out gross,
and that stuff that's coming out of that eye. Great.
Then Lewis comes in and kisses her. That's just so nasty.
Yeah, but that stuff is going out of the eye, and you're like, no, don't do it. No.
And then you hear the screams there at the end, and that fade to black.
I love it. I love the ending. And I mean, this film, I mean, for a film from the 80s that can make you feel this much, and you know, you're invested in it kind of when you start, but to make you feel that grief, and King himself, he's the Rev at the funeral. You know, to make you feel this much in such a short amount of time, I think does its job. And I think that's also where the new films lack any kind of thing like that. Because the new films are all flash, flash, flash. And we're going to try to freak you out. It doesn't work. In which, ladies and gentlemen, we will bring you some reviews on the new films, unfortunately, later on, even though we don't want to, but we will. But this is where this benefits.
And like I said, you kind of touched on earlier how people kind of dog this movie. Like I was looking back, like Leonard Maltin labeled it a bomb. Gene Siskel called it trash.
Yeah.
And but
this is King.
Even then, though, I think they kind of missed the point of the movie.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about how it's the lost myth. There's so much more there that you can dissect. There's so much layers to it that they just look at it like, oh, it's just a horror movie with blood and gore and kind of write it off.
Exactly.
But there's a lot more to it, and obviously it's stuck with the fans. It's become a cult classic. Come out. It was actually the #1 horror movie of 1989, making $89 million worldwide off that $11 million budget. So,
yeah, exactly.
So it definitely hit a chord with moviegoer and audience.
And as far as like, you know, you have several King films, you know, 1408, The Shining, this one, several others. I mean, we could go on and on and on. But as far as King films, Stephen King films, that say, this is what the book is, this is what we're giving you. This is one of those films that, besides, like I said, that Wendigo part and a few other parts, this is a damn near perfect adaptation of the book.
My pick in nits, like I said, it's near perfect. My pick in nits is like I always wanted to actually have more of Judd's wife, like she was in the book.
Yes.
Because you have her pass away, he's grieving, and then when Gage comes back in the book, he's using his wife against him. And that I always thought that was a great touch in the book, and like you get that a little bit in the remake. But you never see the wife, so it really doesn't, like, it does nothing for you as the audience because you've never seen her.
Right. And doesn't give you nothing extra.
Exactly. So that's one of my pick and nits. So, but other than that, like I said, I'd still give this easily 4.5, 5 bones.
5 bones for me, because it terrified me as a child. And I can watch it now, and I'm not as afraid now. But damn, if it doesn't still hold a candle, you know.
So that's it, Booze and Ghouls, with our review of Pet Sematary. Like I said, fantastic film. I'm hoping you've seen it by now. If you haven't, drop everything, go give it a watch. Let us know what you think in the comments on it.
Yeah, totally. And if you're me personally, it's fall, and I love a film that kind of has that fall feeling. That's a good horror film. This one does it perfectly with the settings and the surroundings, the fallen leaves. So this is a good one for you. You're just sitting bored one night. You want a popcorn flick. You want something good to put on. Put this on.
Yep. See
if it doesn't change. And leave us some comments about how it makes you feel.
Yeah, if you like the video, hit that like button, subscribe,
Yeah.
share it with your friends, your grandma, your enemies, like anybody you can think of.
Dig up your Zelda
Yeah.
and show it to her. Maybe she won't get you. And as always, friends and fiends, remember, stay tuned for more gruesome reviews on Stephen King and other horror works. And always remember, blood and guts, HHN.